proud of.
And those do exist because those are collected from all over the world, all over the continent. Of African imprints all over the world.
Yes. And if nothing else, again, they have given, it's awakened people to realize that although in our history books we have been shamed and shown the low side of our history, the low parts of our history, I think this has piqued several people's interest into the high sides of it, the high parts of it.
The value, the beauty. And I also have you started reading back The Coming by Daniel Black?
Girl, I'm actually reading the other one, Perfect Peace.
Okay.
So, I'll probably read The Coming while I'm at the hospital.
I picked, I don't know if I want you to read it during that time. I picked it back up today and was like, okay, I feel like after Wakanda, I am ready to go back and read this.
What happened in the reading?
Wakanda? Or
in the reading. So you were saying there's a comparison.
Well, okay, so, Killmonger on his last statement is like, bury me in the ocean with my people.
They knew that was better than captivity.
Yeah. And so that reminded me of The Coming because it talks about the Middle Passage and, all the people. So I was like, well, let me try to read it and really get with the idea, the reality of who we are as African Americans, because we aren't Wakandan. We did not stay there. We were not shielded. We were not protected. We basically were left out there just like Killmonger. Like, I see him in a lot of, and I think you even said it earlier, see him in a lot of the kids that we teach and a lot of the people around us, and every African American could identify, if they look deep enough, could identify with his plight and his struggle. Yeah. And I even read an article that said, he probably is America's worst nightmare because basically you're here, you're mad, you have education, all the tools, you've learned everything from, your oppressors, and you're ready to fight back. So, was he really a villain?
God, that's crazy.
So, I don't know. So now when I'm reading The Coming, I'm like, this is a different point of view than I was before, of just sadness and what are we? What are we? Who are we? What are we? We know the possibilities of what could have been, but I feel like The Coming will give a better shaping of the hope for African Americans, I guess. The hope and strength.
But I think what it highlights, according to the author, when we were talking to him, and listening to him, was the strength of the ancestors and the strength of the time before. Like when he read the introduction, it was all, to me, that was what kind of stood out. Because we don't ever think about what happened before. Yeah. We don't ever consciously focus on and take time to look into what was before, because what's been shoved down our throats, which has been mentioned repeatedly on social media and in different articles, is we were slaves and you had to be beaten and you were escaping and you were looking rough and you were sweaty and you were whipped and you were, beaten down. So,
and I think that tie is kind of what kind of connects to Wakanda and the idea that Africans aren't that. And
exactly.
That we weren't just dwelling in dust and they came up and said, now you're going to be a slave. You literally had civilizations that were going on that could have the Egyptians had the biggest technology of all time. Technology like Wakanda could have possibly happened with vibranium, who knows what, but the idea of and I think that if you were to apply, and this is I guess trying to get way, if you were to apply the knowledge that was stolen and all the strength that was stolen, that could be equivalent to the power of vibranium and the super magic that a group of people could possibly have that could build pyramids and could build the pyramids in Sudan that are awesome and they're bigger than the ones in Egypt. We never even heard of them before. There's so much possibility that the continent had to offer, and it's just kind of what could have been and where we came from. And so Now what is the question, though?
I think, but that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I am. Like I said, it's piqued the interest. Like I saw an article about this king and queen who are, the article actually said they don't have superpowers, but they are real life kings and queens in Africa present day, and they are some of the richest people in the world.
Right.
So I think it just changes. I think what Black Panther has done is changed our focus, because what we have been focusing on is this horrid part of our history, where I think, and through Disney, Marvel, I don't care, whatever it took, but perhaps it's changing our focus and attention to the other part of us that we don't ever think about.
Right. And
where you were fortunate, remember this Sweet Tea and Sunshine. This is Southern over here, and you're Cali and
Nairobi,
and you had teachers in Dashiki. Yeah, that wasn't happening in the South.
Right, and it's a very unique, and I talk to my sisters about it all the time, the unique upbringing that we had didn't happen. And it's not even something that we could talk about, because it was kind of like,
you didn't know it was something to talk about. Yeah.
Nobody would even understand. Like, clearly, that's not the education anybody else has had before. Or when we met those people, like, Zakiya met people at Howard that grew up like that in Detroit or in Chicago, and they had little pods of that going on, but it just wasn't mainstream. And that's a reality that.
So with that, that's what I mean. I think, as you just said, it wasn't mainstream. So basically what a lot of African Americans have gotten through Black Panther is just a little bitty sip of what all they can be exposed to.
Right. And the pride of going and finding an African outfit. Like, there's people who had never, like I know you have, but who would never and wouldn't know where, but we're looking for that connection to wear something. Even if it's as petty as, he thinks that it was or whatever, then that little pride that they wanted to support. Yeah. And, go there and show something like that could be a total shift in a generation.
It really could.
It really could. Or it could just be an outfit. Either way, they're going to wear it again. They're not just going, because the things are not cheap.
This is true.
So if you spend all that money, I hope you might find a Kwanzaa to go to next year.
Go to Sweet Auburn Festival at least.
Something, girl.
Land to the King Center, something. African American History Museum in D.C. Something. You need to find somewhere else to wear when you're going to be proud. Wear to work like me and hear folks talking about it's for president.
Wear with pride. Well, that also brings up what we were talking about with travel. And I don't know, I guess we could talk about travel later, but like the focus of, having the first trip be something that they can connect to versus something that's just a trip or like a vacation on a beach somewhere where they've been to a beach. So why are you going to another?
So we had this argument. We've had this argument over and over and over.
I know.
Number one of the arguments, you just hate that we take our babies to Disney area. You could go somewhere else. But I agree. And I think when they get to the age of being able to appreciate it.
Disney.
Right, we're going to do both.
You didn't say not something else. You said and.
But I'm going to, Lord, I hate telling you you're right.
Oh.
Ugh. I almost threw up
saying it. I'm ready.
I almost threw up saying it.
Oh,
but, that was our deep discussion in Jamaica. We were trying to figure out where could we go that would not be too deep for them to get what they're experiencing, yet have some type of historical
or cultural reference. That they could learn from. Yeah.
So here we go again. After watching Black Panther, I really started reflecting so hard because I'm like, people always running to Buckingham Palace. I mean, Black folks, I've been there.
Right.
And the Eiffel Tower, been there too.
Right, and it's great to see.
Right.
But how more, like, I don't even know.
The impact.
Yeah, what kind of impact would it be if you knew those were built by someone that was connected to your ancestors. You know what I mean? Like, and I
Right.
don't know if it's even that spiritual for someone who is of French descent. I don't know what kind of pride they have in the Eiffel Tower.
Right.
But from a Black African American standpoint, having been told, your people are nothing, all of that, 400 plus
for life
years of indoctrination of your people can't do this. Like, how powerful would it be to go to this other place and say, wow, behold, Wakanda.
Behold.
This is amazing, and it was done by Black people. See, it's not impossible.
Right.
And not like your kids or my kids would feel that, but it's a powerful thing to see. It's a powerful thing to feel. And I remember seeing the slave castles in Senegal as a 9-year-old and weeping like a 9-year-old. I was just laid out like weeping because you could feel the spirits of the people there. And it was like, it was very like, the impact of it was really powerful. And I don't know about what my kids experience it, but the connection is undeniable after you see that. Because it's like, this is where it started. This is where we are. Like, whoa, really? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you just sitting over here living your best life in the United States eating McDonald's. Like, do I really want to have kids who don't understand
the scope?
The whole, the world is bigger than just this.
I like it.
And they could go to Paris after that and enjoy that too. Like, it's not this over. They can
go study abroad.
Right. But I think
it's just a whole different
intentionally exposing them to certain things because you want them to feel pride or want them to see representation.
Yeah. I love it. You have absolutely transformed you and Wakanda. And it's not that I didn't think that. I think I just haven't thought about it.
You don't think it through. Mm-hmm. I don't think that people do. And I don't think that, like, I even was talking about how they had that HBCU special on the other day. And I, out of the blue, was like, that's why I'm teaching. I had no idea that was why I was, I like it. And I was like teenagers, but the idea of having a Black teacher was like a novelty to me growing up. So
if it was a novelty to you in Nairobi,
well, in Nairobi,
what do you think it was?
That was pre-K. So I had the beginning,
but
then I didn't see any anymore.
I did not see any until college, and that was one.
Right.
And she loved on me, and it was so impactful. And my teachers always loved me.
Right. And you could learn, and that was fine.
It was just
and that was great.
Different.
And there was a girl on that show who was like, I was like, oh my God, this is me. She said it was so empowering to be around people who looked like her that were learning because she had never experienced that her whole entire life. And it was like, she was at Spelman, which was okay. That was sweet. But to hear it from a student's point of view of someone, and we think that we're doing them justice by pulling them away from where they're supposed to be and exposing them to these different experiences where it's like, maybe they could have been fine just wherever they are.
You already know my experience. I think I've already told the podcast. There's no point in me going back through that. But, I just had this conversation with a teacher the other day. Mm-hmm. I said, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I was always the only Black kid in my classes.
Yeah.
I was the only Black kid on my basketball team. Yeah, right. Basketball, sports, aren't we supposed to be there?
Right.
Nope. I was the only one. They spread all the little Black girls out, one per team.
I can identify with that.
And I said, then I became a teacher. I was the only Black person on my hallway. Mm-hmm. Then, like, about 4th or 5th year, it ended up being like 2 or 3 on one hallway. So I told them, I said, listen, and this is just so, I feel like this is my mission. I just told this teacher, I said, you need to get comfortable with talking to me about things you don't understand. Mm-hmm. I've been trained for this my whole life.
Right.
I said, so if it's something you don't understand about a student that may not look just like you, let me help you get to that place where you can interact with your students and your parents in a way that they feel welcome.
And that's powerful. That is in retrospect, you know, once I went to a HBCU